I really need somebody with a piece of sense in their brain to really answer this for me. So you have a guy like me that's telling a lot of women to put some clothes on to protect themselves from the men that they say that they're scared of, right? And then they say, this man need to be on watch. He's dangerous because he told us to put some clothes on. Then you got the guys that's caping for y'all saying, well, it don't matter what clothes you wear, guys. Do what you do. And y'all don't question those guys?
So I know plenty of people have tried to explain this to you, but I got tagged on this video, so I'm going to give it a shot. In your world, there's two types of men. There's the men who want to harm and assault women, and then there's the men like you who want to protect women and tell them to put some clothes on. What your worldview doesn't have, has no sense of, is a world where men don't harm women, where men have no interest in assaulting a woman no matter what she's wearing, where she could stroll on by completely naked and he would tip his hat and say, "M'lady," and go about his day. Instead, you've accepted that men who harm women are an inevitable fact of life. Can't do anything about that. Yeah, presumably you don't count yourself as one of those men. You would never harm a woman. Nor, I'm sure you would insist, would any of the men you are friends with. And if I was to ask you, why is that? You would say it's the way you were raised, the values and principles that you were taught. So it's something that can be learned. We could then look at this situation as one where men need to teach young boys and men that this behavior is wrong. And not just this behavior, but all of the behaviors that enable and support it. The dismissive attitudes towards women sharing their stories, the inappropriate and dehumanizing jokes, the locker room talk, the constant disrespect, objectification, and sexualization of women that our society insists is entirely appropriate the moment she turns 18, though in truth, often long before. That has led us to a place where we petition for violent men to be able to resume their careers. And men found guilty of sexual assault are invited to the White House to meet and mingle with other men with histories of sexual assault. Men could devote their time and effort to educating and calling out these behaviors, but that's a lot of work. And there's a lot of pushback from other men who will challenge and will argue with you about it. Taking a stand means spending your social capital and being seen as weak or a simp by those other men. So alternatively, we put in the bare minimum of effort to prove we're one of the good ones and tell women to change their behavior instead. And then we don't have to worry about other men challenging our lack of masculinity. We can just tell women to put on some clothes. Job done. We've protected women, we're a hero, we can go home. And those men, well, they're somebody else's problem to deal with. But when we put the focus and accountability on their victims, instead of on the men who perpetrate this violence, they also get to avoid that conflict, the challenge to their social status, the shame and ridicule from other men. They get to continue without consequence, constantly pushing boundaries, going further and further and further until, oops, they went too far. But you get to sleep soundly because you've protected women. You've given them a piece of advice that is worth its weight in gold. Just put on some clothes. But this advice is worthless. For the last 12 years, the What Were You Wearing exhibit has been highlighting and educating how fundamentally flawed this approach to assault is. How do you tell this person to put on more clothes? Or this person? Or this person? Clothes have nothing to do with assault, and they are not an invitation to assault. And even you admit this fact, that it won't actually keep women safe. Because later in your video, you say this.
You want to protect yourself? Put your clothes on, watch where you're going, watch the areas, stop going clubbing at night, stop going places by yourself. Do y'all not know when a man is trying to protect y'all?
It's not just put on some clothes. It's put on some clothes. Watch where you go. Don't go clubbing at night. In fact, don't go anywhere alone, presumably without a big strong man to protect you. But had you taken an actual interest into how to protect women, you'd know that the men by their side and in their homes, their boyfriends, husbands, fathers, uncles, and family members, are the men that they are most in danger from. It's not the random stranger in a dark alley. It's not the man in the nightclub. It's the man in her home, who she is most vulnerable around, who is the man most likely to assault her. Because men view the women they have access to, the women they are closest to, as property, as objects that they have power and control over. So respectfully, if you want women to stop seeing you as a red flag, start listening and learn, educate yourself about the topic. Stop giving out advice that does not protect women and instead puts them in harm's way. But more importantly, stop telling victims to change their behavior and instead call out the predatory men who perpetrate it. Educate other men on the ways their dismissive and insulting behavior towards women supports, enables, and endorses these attitudes. In short, do something actually meaningful that will help protect women, instead of taking the easy way out, blaming victims, and insisting this is their fault and their problem to fix.